people? Welcome back to another episode of I Am Negan, a TWD Universe podcast. My name is Adam Vale. I am a senior editor over at the Koalition.com, and I'm joined by editor-in-chief of the Koalition.com, Richard Bailey Jr.
What's up, Adam? What's up, listeners and viewers?
And Throwdown Show's own Carlos Romero.
Yo, what's going on?
What's going on, people? We are back, everybody. We are back for Daryl Dixon, The Book of Carols, Season 2, Episode 4, A Paradise for You. Yeah, that's a translation. The title is in French. I would butcher it, which is why I'm not even going to bother. So that is it, people. We are here. We are more than halfway. We are almost done. And man, this episode, I would say, for the first part, delivered. Second part, started kind of went flat and then came back strong toward the end. But again, if this is your first time here, we will be discussing and spoiling it this episode. So hopefully you already seen it over on AMC Plus or over on your AMC network. So that way you're not completely spoiled. Like, hey, what you guys do? I hate that. There's so many shows out there that do that. And I get it. You want to get the jump on the competition of other shows, YouTube spots, whatever it is. But man, it does injustice for people that want to just hear a discussion about it after seeing it. And when something like that pops up on their feed or with the title that says, oh, can you believe what this did? You know, you get it. You pull them in, but then you're ruining it for everyone else. I hate that. I avoid those type of things. And that's not happening here. So again, that's what we give the heads up. If anything, then just come back later and see if your thoughts align with ours in regards to this episode, the season, this spin-off, all within The Walking Dead. So, with that said, let's just jump into it. 3, 2, 1. Boop. This episode kicked off strong, man. Kicked off strong. I'm just going to get out the way to get your thoughts. Isabella's dead. Isabella's dead. I forgot if it was Carlos or Rich. Somebody said this, if it was not last episode or the episode before, that you didn't see her making it to this plane flight back to the States. Right? Who said that? Did it?
Well, I said someone's not going to make it. I didn't think I predicted Isabel, so I can't take the credit for that. Maybe it was Rich. But Rich is cynical. He probably thought everyone was going to die.
No, I did predict that Graybeard will die, so stay tuned for that next week.
That was a Graybeard. Graybeard is still kicking for as far as we know. He's with Laurent on their way to Paris, making a great escape. But man, I had to, because here it is. Once that episode starts off, we see Isabel having a one-on-one with the cult leader dude, and he's talking about all this, he's spitting his whole thing about Laurent and all that stuff. He's like, no, you don't seem to understand. Yes, I thought he was special. This is Isabel. But he's special in a way that he brings out the better side of us. He brings back humanity, and his outlook on life wasn't as bleak as everyone else, especially growing up in this. And they felt he was special in that way. And of course, she didn't say it, but we know of how he was birthed. The whole thing of his mom being a bit. And they were like, oh, what's going to happen when this baby comes out? Oh, he's a healthy kid. And that's what she was pointing out to this guy. I was like, hey, he's just like us. He can get hurt and he could die. And this whole thing that you're planning out in your head is not going to work. And I still don't buy his logic of, oh, this is going to unite everyone when we have the kid get bit and then he survives. But then what? People are going to be like, well, can I get some of that blood in me? Or is this going to help me? Or what? Do I pray to him now? By praying to him now, that makes me immune? I don't know. I don't even, they haven't really discussed the long game for this dude. And so it didn't really make much sense. But then they find out, because if you remember last episode, we had Janae and her military group. They were outside the gates ready to storm in. And so he starts hearing all this screaming and all this stuff. Like, hey, they hear. She attacks him. He picks up a knife and stabs her in the gut. And, man, I didn't think that she was going to die that way. I know later in the post, he started talking about how, this the feelings and all that stuff. And then the actor that played that cult leader was like, I didn't want to be the one to do it. I'm like, man, I still can't believe it's done that way. I could understand why, getting her out of the way. especially for Daryl. I mean, it's the typical trope for all of these type of shows when you have a lead actor who travels around and does stuff. I mean, we've seen it in movies, Indiana Jones and stuff. It's rare that the love interest carries over, whether multiple seasons or multiple films in that respect. But man, I thought I'd at least make it to the end of this season. You know, try to get to the Great Escape, and then something happens, or they get split up, and it leaves that what if type of thing. But no. Before I go any further, what did you guys think of the stabbing? And this is how we say farewell to Isabel. Carlos?
Yeah, it was pretty shocking, and I gotta admit it. I, like you, would have preferred her to be alive, just because we like the dynamic with Daryl having a love interest, at least for some substantial time. Like there was once in the Walking Dead proper that happened as well, but it lasted for like a minute. This one, I was like, hey, it would be interesting if he comes back with a love interest, gets on double dates with Rick and Michonne. Yeah, maybe it's a different type of show. But nope, they gotta bring him back to be the lone wolf again, and they took her out. So even though I didn't like it because I wanted to see what would have happened with that dynamic further on in the story, I gotta give him credit for having having the guts to put one in the guts for Isabel.
And
So
I'm sure. Real quick, just because I was just thinking about it before I forget, I'm sure people listening and watching was like, "Well, Connie's still alive, right? He's still got that's one."
Connie, he learned. That's the thing. He learned the first love interest. He learned how to train a dog from her. He learned sign language from Connie, and he learned French from Isabel. What other skill is Daryl gonna learn next? That's that. Stay tuned, people. We got to know. Is it Spanish? And yeah, and going back to the whole Isabel thing, I will say that I even though I wasn't a big fan of that outcome, I do appreciate that they had the guts to pull it off, and not just give everyone plot armor. Although I will say this, maybe the actress who plays Isabel wasn't too keen on doing future shows maybe in America or something, and I said, no, this is my end. I wouldn't be surprised.
Anything's possible, but then that's assuming they're coming back to the States. I still don't think they're coming back for who knows when, till maybe they decide to end this whole spinoff of Daryl's show.
The Avengers got to assemble at some point.
But who's the Avengers? Because all right, well, we get deeper because there are some discussions that don't really cross over, but we get those answered. Rich, before we move on, anything you want to say in regards to Isabel's passing?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, I think Carlos made a very good point. Perhaps the actress did not want to continue making shows, and they felt it was time to end her story. But I will say this, I know that you and Carlos were very surprised. I was not surprised, because the thing about it is this: she made a decision she could have easily gone with Laurent and Graybeard in the previous episode. She decided to stay behind and got herself caught, all because she was concerned about Daryl. She wanted to be there for Daryl. So in my opinion, it was needed for her to get taken out, and also by the person who took her out, because it will further fuel why this person is the next target that Daryl needs to go after. So, and of course we all and I think it was a very good idea to have her become basically the reason why Daryl and Carol get reunited is because of her. So she served her purpose. Once they reunited those two characters, I said, okay, she's probably not going to make it. When I saw her get stabbed, I said, okay, yeah. So I think it was okay as far as what they did.
Rich brings up a good point. I mean, the fact that it was the cult leader who did it, and we were wondering, I mean, we were talking about this during the episode, we were wondering, well, who's going to be the big bad after some of the actions that happened later on in the episode? And now it makes sense. It's back to the cult leader, because the motivations that he was the one that actually stabbed Isabel, it gives Daryl the motivation not only to go for Laurent and dip, but also to probably get his revenge.
Well, he doesn't know how she died. I don't think he knows. He knows she's dead, but she didn't say who did it. right? She didn't say it.
Yeah, she didn't say. So not sure if he's gonna find out. I'm guessing he will. Someone will tell him.
Somebody has to tell him. Like, oh, you know who did this, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, speaking of that, while we're on this topic of people dying, it was time for Carol to die, at least according to Janae, because she was out there and it's like, all right, we're going to go out with style here. We're going to gun down all these other people, right? We see them get all mowed down. And then somebody walks over behind and shoots them with the injection to mutate them, the mutagen, right? Shoots them all. And then they get up and the Walking Dead now turns into the Running Dead, right? And that was great in a way, but I don't know. I'm excited. We've been talking about this since, man, a World Beyond. Yeah, that whole thing. That, all right, we're going to get the runners. And to see it done this way, and we'll get into what happens toward the end of the episode that makes you wonder if this is it for the runners. I don't know, but it was cool to see that this is the process. Then you shoot them once with this thing, and that's it. 28 days later, they're just running at you. That was great. They had Carol tied up. She gets away, of course. She runs, knocks out a guy that's in an ATV, drives off, got the other dude on the back still there, and he's like, what's happening? But these runners, right, the runners of the running zombies are just chasing after them. Get this nice little scene zigzagging through this area here, the village, as she's trying to get closer within the nest area. And then they hit like a roadblock. She doesn't know what to do. And the guy in the back says, don't worry. He shoots. It's like, all right, let's get through. They break through, and the walkers and everyone comes after them, whatever. But they're now within the compound. That was the great, I would say, escape, but not really, because then there's a lot of conflict, a lot of cool scenes with Carol making all the, the just killing all the different walkers. She's seeing the runners. She doesn't really acknowledge it. I guess can't really acknowledge it to who, right? There's no one really to, but I was expecting some more expressions like, I don't believe this. Now we have runners. It's just, I don't know, some acknowledgement that this is happening. This is really happening now. It's because, and I said this while we were watching this, this could be the turning point of the entire franchise. Because if this is the new norm, right, that as long as you have this, the mutagen, right, the shots, then you could make runners. Will this carry over into Dead City? Will this carry over into whether future spinoffs? We don't know, right? Maybe it could be just something that doesn't even carry over into the rest of the seasons of Daryl Dixon. Maybe it's just for the season, but man, we know it's there. We know it's possible, and it's happening. So we see that she's running around. She's killing some of them. She's fighting some others. There's a lot of chaos in the background. And then we see our friend Isabel, because she got up. She stumbled out. She's not just dead. And then I guess that gives that hope. Like, oh, maybe she'll survive this. She's in the street. And then all of a sudden there's a runner just coming over from behind her. And we're like, oh, this is it. Nope. Carol saves the day. And at that point, I was thinking, well, if from behind, if you see Isabel hunched over, moving all creepy like, oh, she's a walker also. She put her down. But no, that's not what Carol does. She walks over, she examines something that Carol, we know, would not have done. Says, oh, have you been stabbed? No, the first question is, have you been bitten? Is there a bite mark on you? No, have you been stabbed? Oh, it's clean. Okay, let me see if I can patch you up. Here we go. That was a little eye rolling right there, just because of how we know Carol handles herself in this world, and that's not the Carol way, especially not with strangers. So, what did you guys think of the finally seeing the meeting between Carol and Isabel in this way, Rich?
Well, let me make a comment. Let me just say this: the ATV scene was cool. But this is a perfect example of plot armor for Carol, because there's no way in hell, if you are right next to these creatures, they aren't going to be trying to gnaw at you or even succeed in biting you. I mean, that was absolutely unbelievable. We know this is a TV show, but come on now, guys. That should have been, somebody would have definitely got killed. In real life, that would have been the end of somebody.
I call this an A-team moment. Dan, da, da, dan, dan. You know, it's like, it doesn't matter how bad the situation is. It's like, oh, they are going to die here. You know, BA is not making it out. Hannibal's not making it. And then all of a sudden, something real cheesy just takes place and they're out. And that was, yeah, like you said, that was this moment here.
I agree 100%. As for the other stuff with the reunion with her meeting Isabel, I do agree. It was a very funny line to have that, are you stabbed? Because, I mean, you can see the person is bleeding out. They're holding their chest. Well, clearly something happened to the person. You know, I did not thinking that she gotten bit. So that was, I do agree. I thought that was a little silly. And we know Carol wouldn't do that in real life. But I think it made sense for her to be the one that was left behind to somehow find, so that Carol can find her. And then she asked about the American Daryl, and that's what her purpose was, to say, oh yeah, I know your friend. But yes, all of the action that took place within that scene with Carol, you know, driving and then them taking out the walkers, I thought that was pretty good.
Yeah. If there's one thing, oh, go ahead.
Just want to second what Rich has been mentioning, the whole thing with the action and going around, the explosions, all that was pretty well done. But yeah, there's an eye roll moment there where Carol is still in the middle of the herd. They got taken down. They can the walkers can see that she got taken down, or that she's still alive. The rest of the people can see that she's still alive. And somehow she still manages to just run to the doom buggy and just pull out a dude and then go, and Mad Max style, going out without getting hit. Like the whole, I guess there was it was just, you know, it was too convenient. It was way more convenient than, you know, we normally give grace for, but you know, the rest of the scene was good. And you talked about Isabel and the Carol scene. Yeah, that she was guns blazing. She didn't care who was who. I was kind of surprised a little bit, because for all we know, Carol's just killing Daryl's friends.
Yeah,
because they weren't the militia from Janae. They were people from the place.
That's what I'm saying. She's shooting anything that moves.
Yeah, she's shooting anything that moves, and then now she has compassion. So that was like a complete 180 just off the bat. So yeah. No, I agree, definitely that. And again, I feel like the show puts itself in these positions, because it's like, all right, well, how do we get this character to meet with this character to progress the story in this way? And it forces their hand, because let's say, all right, if we were to rewind back to that scene where Carol and the walkers, how does she get out if she doesn't pull an 18 moment by herself? How does she do it? She doesn't have any help. They didn't have anyone else. Like, oh man, she made friends with one other person who could possibly help, besides that one dude before, but he left. He betrayed her so that way he can get out. So what do you do? What do you do unless they can have some other rebel people out of nowhere come out and start attacking to cause a distraction? I don't know, but this is the route that they go with Carol. They are full blown, you know, G.I. Jane with her on a lot of these episodes, and especially in this series. It's even called the Book of Carol. She is the badass. So we just got to take it for what it is. But it does progress the story, because as she's comforting Isabel, and so it's like, I'm here looking for my friend, an American, you know, and it's like, oh, okay. And of course, Isabel gives that look like, oh, I know who you are, you know. So we can put two and two together, because it's set off camera, obviously, but we could assume Isabel tells Carol where they're holding Daryl. So let's just jump into that. I still need answers on this, because we saw him chained up, right? Last episode, wasn't he chained up? And then like the basement of that compound, the nest. Yeah, but I'll clarify that point, because I think I heard you being confused during that scene.
Yeah.
So there was walkers going down with this one dude that was running away. He had the keys, and he was scared. And then Daryl points out his arm, like, "Hey, take me the hell out if you want to survive." And then the next scene is just him, Daryl kicking ass. So the way I understood it is like Daryl, got freed from that guy and took care of business.
Convinced the guy. Yeah, okay, that's the part I didn't understand. He said, I saw that part. I'm like, but I didn't see the guy return back to help him. And then all of a sudden, he's over there kicking ass. And then he's got his weapon in hand, his mace. He's swinging it and smashing heads. It's a cool scene. That's one thing that I really like about this whole Daryl Dixon show. The action is top quality. People could argue all they want about action on network TV and all that stuff, but man, the way they put the set designs and then the scenes together here, and we've praised the stunt team over in France because these guys are taking all kinds of big bumps, and this was great too. There was a lot of good scenes here, a lot of good action. So he's over here welling away, pop, 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 knocking them all down, and then who do we see on the other end? We see Carol. She's clearing away. She's helping out also, and then they just meet up in the middle. He's shocked. He hugs her. I'm sure a lot of those who were pro Daryl Carol uniting as a couple thought this would be the moment. And yeah, you would think it would be the moment. But as I've said for many years on this show, I don't think they're ever going to go down that road. They don't need to go down that road. They are just good friends. Why can't you just be good friends? Why do you have to create that type of sexual relationship between them? You don't need to do that. And I feel the show has always tried to sprinkle in other love interests and stuff for Daryl. And then hell, Carol is married to Ezekiel, and still people are like, when is Daryl and Carol getting to what?
Well, they're not married anymore.
Oh no. Those days are over. Well, are they? Were they ever really married? I mean, did Father Gabriel conduct that? Did they get it in writing? I don't know.
Yeah, that's still not clear in the canon. We'll need to go
right. We'll find out. We'll wait for the next the Commonwealth spinoff when that comes eventually. Yeah. So I still think something else is going to happen with that. Don't quote me on it, but I have a feeling that we haven't seen the end of the Commonwealth. So they embrace. They have that moment, and it was good. It was a good moment. It's a touching moment. I don't know if it's I don't want to spoil anything for anyone that also watches the show From. Rich, are you up to date on today's episode of From? Oh,
I actually am not. I have to watch that tonight.
I will not spoil, but and this is not a spoiler for people that are like, because like I said, I don't like spoilers. But as you know, anyone who watches that show, that Victor, the character on the show, that his father has shown up, right? And that was from last time. Everybody that does watch the show knows that much. Well, that is inevitable that they're going to reunite. That was an emotional moment. This I didn't feel it. I know what they were going for, but I didn't get that. Like, oh, finally! It didn't trigger for me. It really didn't trigger for me.
Well, let me stop you right there. I fully understand, and my response is because they are saving everything for the emotional reunion of Rick and Daryl. That's the one that will get people, since Daryl is the one that saw Rick, presumably die in the show.
This is it. I was thinking about it too. I put in my notes. I have to mention that, but there's no real good spot to mention. So let's just bring it up. At some point, one needs to get out. They have their own little conversations, right? In transit, because they try to get over to the cave area where Laurent and Graybeard were supposed to be. They're gone. But he knows that the plan was to get to Paris, so then they go en route. We learn a lot of info, right, during this walk. I'm pretty sure it was during this walk, but either way, it's stuff that needs to be said. For one, right, we know that Carol doesn't know that Rick and Michonne are back. That did not happen. So the ones who live that whole thing, that is not connected at all to this one. So because when Judith, when Carol, I think it was later on in the episode, she hands Daryl, right, a little toy or whatever, I forgot what it was. She handed it, and it was like, oh, this is from Judith. Judith misses you, the whole thing. And he says, how is everybody? Oh, they were good. That is the moment where she could have said, "Hey, Rick and Michonne, Rick, they both came back. Michonne found him. The family's back together. AJ, all them, all happy, eating Twinkies at the Commonwealth." No, she doesn't say that because she doesn't know that. So we could assume. Well, now you don't have to assume. Well, I guess we could assume that this is within that same time period. That while this is happening with Daryl, all that other stuff with Rick and Michonne is also happening elsewhere. Right. So if Daryl and Carol ever make it back, I would like to assume that we would see Rick and Michonne already there and the family. Right. What do you guys think? Do you think that's how that timeline thing is panning out, or that stuff still hasn't happened yet? So even if Carol and Daryl make it back to the Commonwealth, there is no Rick and Michonne.
Well, I think that it is going to be saved for when Carol and Daryl both come back. Then it'll be a lot more emotional because she'll come back and be like, "Oh, it's Rick and Michonne." So maybe that's what the grand plan is with all of this.
Yeah, I agree with Rich, and I'll just say, and I feel like they're building the Avengers. Like they're Daryl and Carol are gonna survive. We know that. Rick and Michonne are safe and sound. They're with baby Junior and Judith, and Negan and Maggie. Those are the pillars. And we still got what's homeboy's name from Fear? That's with the little girl that we all hate. His daughter. He was in The Walking Dead proper before Fear. Stick. Do with a stick, but he didn't 103K.
Morgan.
We still got Morgan looking for Rick. So I feel like all of these timelines are going to converge eventually. And I don't think it's going to be in New York. I mean, in New York, in Paris. So, Daryl and Carol are going to eventually make their way back to America. And I think they're going to take Laurent because he's the Lisan Al-Gaib. And yeah.
Well, that was one of the other conversation pieces that they talked about, is that Carol's still surprised that he got so attached. And he even said that wasn't the plan, because he was like, yeah, Isabel and Laurent, that was it. And Laurent was the glue, and that he's definitely coming back, with them to the States. And she's like, all right, whatever, but she doesn't really go into it. She doesn't ask too many questions. And that always bothers me, but I guess they could have, I don't know. I was expecting her to say, well, what's so special about this kid that's causing all this chaos? I mean, that's a logical question, right? Anybody would ask, is he like some higher ups kid or something? No, it doesn't matter at this point. It's like, all right, fine. He doesn't want to leave, needs to find this kid, wants to make sure the kid's okay. And this is where I feel the show, for me, went off the rails for a while. This whole, what was it? I feel like maybe 15 minutes or so, or maybe longer. I don't know. I felt like it just went on too long, of showing Carol and Daryl now in this village where pretty much everyone, they're all older people, but it looks like there's only a few older people that are still alive. All the other older people have died of natural causes, but still live on their property. And so you see all these walkers, but they're all still locked away behind their fences or whatever, and their houses groaning. But there's an older couple and is willing to help them out. And they were like, oh, yeah, Laurent was here with another guy. Yeah. They left, to go to Paris. We gave him the car that we had that worked. Daryl wants to put together another car. Like, well, there we got parts and stuff, all the other cars in this village. We'll work on it tomorrow. And let's have a meal. And they're all happy, this older couple. And instantly, whenever I hear any of this stuff and I see a meal, and I'm thinking cannibals. That's always the first thought that comes to my mind, is cannibals. And I was waiting for it. It didn't happen, but it was still, the whole time, we know something bad's going to happen. It was creepy. It just made no sense. We have another little seed that gets planted. And I guess this was for the crowd. Again, is for that old crowd. That's that small. I want to say small group of people that still want Carol and Daryl to have that romantic relationship, because the older woman there is, I guess she was preparing another meal the next day with Carol, and says, he loves you. And even Laurent talked about it and how good he is and this and this and that. I was like, well, I don't think Laurent would have said anything like that because he saw how he was reacting Daryl with Isabel. So I don't get why sprinkle all this thoughts of conspiracy ideas that, oh, maybe now Carol, you and Daryl can get together and he really loves you, and it's like, you just met this dude and now you're saying all this stuff to her and you're very relaxed. That was an issue I had with Fear the Walking Dead, how people were not acting the way they should in their current situation, and that applied to this old couple here. Yes, Carol pointed out, you guys seem so happy playing music, you got food, and it doesn't seem to bother you that there's walkers around and all this stuff. But it's still, I hate that. I need everyone to be on constant alert and panic as if they were living in like a war-torn country. It did not happen. But what did you guys think of that when she starts saying, hey, Daryl really loves you, and I'm sure you love him, and like already like pushing, planting like, oh, you should be a couple. Did that even work for you? I was pissed. I was like, stop with this, please.
I feel like it worked for Rich.
Oh no. Well, first and foremost, I agree with everything you said, Adam. I feel like the show started off great, very strong opening, and then they decided to take a pit stop for to kill time for at least 15 to 20 minutes. And I do wish that couple had an ulterior motive. When I saw them in the countryside and having a good time, I instantly thought to myself, because I saw a movie not too long ago called Speak No Evil. By the way, everybody should see that movie because James McAvoy was amazing in that movie. But I saw that movie and how unhinged that couple or that guy in particular became, and they came off as, oh yeah, very nice people, so on and so forth. So I was waiting for there to be some type of turn to come with this couple. And of course, we saw what happened later on. But I agree. I understand they had to try to figure out what their next move was going to be. But and of course, luckily it didn't last for too long as far as the entire episode. But I do agree it did slow down right after that strong opening, and I had an issue with that as well.
Yeah, and it was 2 days he was there because if you go based off of the day-night cycle, they were there for 2 days. They went from being in a rush to all right, well, we're gonna stay again for another meal and the whole thing. At one point, the soldiers and Janae show up in town. It looks like they were just gathering some resources that this couple farms and then shares their crops or whatever with the soldiers there. But then, as you mentioned, I think it was Carlos that mentioned, it looked like the older dude gave some kind of signal to them. And whatever it was, they came back. And that's when the other older woman was like, what did you do? He lifts up his gun. He's pointing it at Daryl and Carol. It's like, yeah, I had to pick a winning side. And we're like, oh, this is it. There's going to be some kind of conflict. But no, the older lady just walks up. She puts the gun down from him. And it's like, come on now. This is dumb. Why'd you even bother with this? And I was waiting for Daryl to just pop him in the face or something. But he doesn't. He doesn't do it. And so that I was like, okay, what's the point of this? But then, of course, Janae, her goons are there. Daryl does a head count. It's about 6. They start running around. Daryl and Carol from different locations, from the barn where she also had that little flashback earlier on. That was interesting that they keep doing that. And I couldn't understand the point of that heart-to-heart that she had with the older woman. They started hugging. And she's like, oh, we all lost. And we get it because we've already had that emotional moment a few episodes back. Actually, I think it was the first episode, right, with Carol season 2, when she was with Ash, and he said the same thing going in the bar, and she started thinking about her daughter and all that. So it's weird to bring that up again. So I don't know. I wasn't understanding of that whole thing. But of course, conflict, shooting happens, old lady dies, old guy is all pissed off. Well, it's all his fault anyway, right? He started all this. He could have just let those people leave, but no. Bunch of stuff happens. Eventually, we see Carol pinned down in a room. Like, this is it. We got Janae walks in. She's talking about she's going to end this. Carol's like, I can't believe you, the cleaning lady, and this is what you turn into. You know, what's wrong with you? And trying to give this whole big moment here. But then Daryl comes in busting the other way. Janae is now pointing 2 weapons, trying to figure out what to do next. But where did I miss on this? That Carol was able to get her hands on that the mutagen gun. How did she get that? Was that from the fallen soldier that she had killed?
Yeah,
that was it, right? Okay, that was it. Because I was like, all right, where did she get this? And anyway, she shoots Janae, and this was a pretty cool death. This was pretty cool because, as we know, we've seen that used on people that have recently died, but we've never seen it get used on someone who's alive. Wait a minute. I'm thinking of last season when it was already a mutated one. I was thinking of when they did that Thunderdome episode where Daryl was fighting against that mutated one.
Yeah.
Remember? Was that he was already mutated? He was already mutated.
Yeah.
They didn't. Okay, so it wasn't like a human, like they shot up in the room and with the mutagen and he went running. Okay, so we see this, and we're waiting to see what happens. And even the camera, it's like it was zoomed in, and we saw in the post, they show all the special effects that went into it. It was really cool. She starts rotting in front of our eyes, all this stuff. But that's it. Then she dies. So it was a cool death, but I was expecting her to, get reborn, come back as a running dead zombie, right? Come on. No, it didn't happen. It looks like if you're alive and you get shot with this thing, you're dead. You're dead, dead. It for some reason, it only works to reanimate. And if you're already animated, it kills you. So what did you guys think of that whole thing with Janae? This is it. She's dead. This was a big bad, dead.
So let me make a quick comment on this. When Janae gave her monologue to Carol, I instantly thought about what Carlos said last week when you said it would have been great for her to explain to Carol the struggles that she went through with her husband in terms of losing him. But they save it for this moment where the character is about to get taken out. So I think it was a good decision to get rid of the Carol. And I will also give a shout out to the person that left the comment on the last episode because they thought that we were harsh when we said, when we were talking about how she acted in that scene with her husband. Well, this is what I will say. It was the same result. She was going to get taken out anyway because she is she is considered a villain for this show. So I didn't really have any issues with how they took her out in this episode. Like you guys said, they have to raise the stakes with every episode. You saw Isabel get taken out earlier in the episode, then you see her get taken out. So I didn't have any issue whatsoever. The only critique I have is that in terms of the older woman getting killed, we never saw that happen. We just saw, when the gunfire started and you saw the Daryl and Carol shooting at people, you didn't see her getting shot. So that clearly happened off camera when she got shot. But outside of that, no, I was satisfied with that entire scene.
Yeah, I felt like the whole aspect of how she ended up was pretty devastating. And I like it. I felt like a horror movie. Felt like I was with Rich in the movies the other day. And it's like, it was done pretty well. Yeah, I do agree with the whole monologue part. The fact that she gave a monologue to Carol would have impacted me more, or would have made more sense, even though I don't have too much of an issue with it. But if it would have made more sense if Janae and Carol had more time to spend together throughout the season. I felt like there could have been something where Carol.
There could have been another episode. Yeah, there could have been another episode in between before this happened.
And that's why I said that the flashback didn't hit with me, because it just, it explains things that could have been explained within Janae and Carol, and that could have given more into their dynamic, and it would have led to more of a relationship between both of them that would have been, at least for me, it would have been more interesting. And then when we reached this scene, we could see, Janae's not killing Carol right away because she wants, she feels like she needs to explain herself to Carol. But here it's like they barely spent hardly any time together. So it's like, why are you're doing the anime villain explanation thing before you hit the dust? So in that way, I felt like it was important for that relationship to have flourished a little bit more and been more fleshed out. But I like the way that she took one for the team, and and the way that it was sort of portrayed. It was really well done.
Yeah, and I think that's the issue that probably these writers have, is that you're used to doing long form storytelling when it comes to The Walking Dead and Fear the Walking Dead and all that. You got these 16 episode seasons, the whole thing. And then when you have to shrink all that down to 6 episodes and everything is go, 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 go in the story, then how do you build these connections with characters? If it's like, all right, we just met up. Now we're going to go and invade the nest. All right, how long does it take? Well, it's happening tomorrow. It's like, oh. So it's not like, oh, they could have said, to get there, it takes like a week or something, or a few days, and then in that trip. And we only got that type of trip form when Carol and Janae were in the vehicle. Remember that time having a little talk, and Carol was doing all this line. But yeah, it could have used a few more, and I think this is just something that they have to figure out and how to pull this off. I feel like the only show that was ever really good at pulling off a bunch of storylines and character development and interactions within following a time frame was the show 24. And it's because you're looking at the clock. So it's like they're looking at the clock as well. I'm sure the writers were looking at the clock. What would be happening at 1500 hours for everyone? Let's start doing it. And then you're on the same page, and then everything sort of makes sense. As here, like you said, it didn't seem like there was any need for that heart-to-heart. Or even I was waiting for, and she said, when Janae was like, what do you know about that type of pain? I was like, this is when you show the flashback really quick of her losing her daughter and all these other people that have died in her life, in her arms. That would have been, but she doesn't. She gives like a little smirk. And then on the other side, I'm like, yeah, well, it doesn't matter for Carol to say anything because Carol's always lying. And clearly Janae knows that Carol's lying with the whole thing about, oh, I want to go and kill Daryl. Come on now. So it doesn't really matter at that point what would have come out of Carol's mouth, because there's no way Janae would have believed it. But she's gone. That's it. We've lost 2 main characters of not just this season, but of the Daryl Dixon spinoff, because they both are been there since the beginning. OGs, which is surprising. So for those who don't know, this show has been picked up for a 3rd season. So this is why, and we'll get into what happens toward the end of it. But I'm still on the fence. I'm still thinking, though, that we're done once the next 2 episodes are finished, because it's only six episodes. We're done with the story. Yeah, I think that they're going to another part of Europe in an effort to try to find a way back to the States. That's what I'm thinking right there. But let's just jump into the ending, because once that happened, Janae dies. We're like, all right, who's the big bad? This is it, right? Who's the big bad? Oh, we find out it's the cult leader dude, the one that was in charge of the nest, the one that wanted to do the whole Laurent test and all that. We have the assistant come in. We have some other people come in and says, yeah, Janae has fallen. She's dead. This and that. What are we going to do? We got to unite. We got to get these people. We got to get these soldiers. Everybody's looking for someone to follow because, the world has hit the poop. That's it. It's gone. So he's the next in command in a way that he is the only surviving leader of a group. And sure enough, he takes ownership of that role. He comes out. He gives a speech, tries to rally his people with the others, saying, we forgive you. We have to work together. We have to get back Laurent and this whole thing. And again, that's where this show falls for me, because I don't see how. I could understand if it was to make this guy the big bad all along and to have him be the ruler, because that's what we were thinking, that he was using the kid as a prop. But it seems like he's drinking the Kool-Aid. He is not thinking like that. He's not seeing the kid as a prop for him to take control. He really thinks that this kid is the chosen one. Am I the only one thinking that, right? Like when Isabel and him had that little heart-to-heart at the beginning, he was like, I believed it from, even your old priest and stuff. And you said it. You both kept saying that he was a chosen one. So I'm believing it. And right, he thinks that this is the second coming.
Well, yeah, he does think that, but I will also add that what they tried to do throughout this entire season is they tried to show him like he basically had conflicted thoughts when certain stuff was happening to other characters in the show. Like you talk about Isabella, obviously that he definitely killed her. But even when you talk about the previous from the previous episode, the other
sister
that perished. He was conflicted about what they were going to do with that situation with her. So I guess what they wanted to tell us from a writing standpoint is that throughout the start of this season, this character was conflicted. He did agree to do certain things, but he wasn't fully committed to it. And now that he is established as the main villain, now he probably is going to be doing a lot more dangerous and dirty things, I think, from here on out.
Well, now he's got a military. He's got the soldiers.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then he's still in that whatever base location that they have, they could probably move to that and merge the compound. So no longer do they have to stay in the nest. There's no reason to hide away, right? Because now you have the group that you were hiding from. Now you're in control. But it's still interesting that the goal is still to get Laurent back and to do this test to prove. I don't know. It doesn't seem like, if anything, this would have been the moment where he comes out and gives a speech and it's like, all right, we were wrong about Laurent. We were wrong about Janae. We were wrong about all these weaknesses. We have to merge together and start anew. And that means cleansing and get rid of all of those. And then say, I've got to get rid of this American or whatever. Or I don't know. There should have been another way. I'm just not sold on this, because what is the end result? That they grab this kid, that they say, all right, they have a walker bite him. He turns, he dies. And then what? Everybody just gets up and walks away. Well, that was a squash. We're all screwed. This is just our life. No, it doesn't seem like a great result. So either way, it doesn't. I mean, for those who are like, what is he trying to say? Like, just think about this. If, let's say, the point was just to save this kid. Oh, he's been kidnapped. If they're pushing that narrative, he's been kidnapped by the Americans and they want to do harm to him. We need to bring him home and use him as a prop, like a prop prince type of situation. But who's really pulling the strings? It's the older guy, the cult leader guy, whatever. That would make more sense. But that's not what they're saying here. They're bringing him back so he can do this test because they really believe that he will survive the bite because of how he was created as a child. That doesn't fly for me. Like, for the overarching story, I'm not a fan of that. I'm not a fan, because the truth is, and we know it's true, we're not going to see that. We're not going to see it. Walking Dead, maybe if it was on Netflix, it would go that far of killing this kid and doing that whole thing. But I really don't see that happening here. Not like this. And I know they're like, oh, well, Judith, they killed her. And we didn't see her die. We saw her walking around as a zombie. And yes, the first episode of Walking Dead, we did see Rick pull a gun. But again, that was already a walker. Kid walker. I don't see this show going that far of showing Lauren get bit, turn into a walker, and somebody then putting one in the dome to put him down. I don't see it happening.
No.
Right? We don't see that happening. Anybody, go ahead, leave in the comments if you see that happening. But I don't. Not the way we've seen this show go in certain directions with certain things. I mean, don't get me started on certain the cast members that have died that people went up in arms over. It's like, oh, I can't believe it. But that's what puts the spice in the show, right? That's what makes you want to see what happens next. If you know that everyone's going to survive, then it doesn't really put any tension. That's why we were shocked that Isabel died the way she did. Somebody here, I forgot who was it, and we all couldn't agree on who said it, but somebody said, yeah, she's not going to make it. But we didn't think it was going to happen here. We thought maybe right at the end of the season. But no, here, episode 4. We got 2 more episodes. So anyway, In closing, I'm going to say, I'll say a B. It had a strong opening and a pretty strong ending, but man, that middle part with that village did not do it for me. That was a waste. That really slowed things down, changed things up. I was not a fan of that. So a B. What about you, Carlos? What's your grading on this?
I'm with you. I feel like this is a B. There overall, I felt like it was, for the most part, it was good. We had those eye roll moments with Carol escaping the herd, and then we had the fact that, like you mentioned, the big bad villain now is the
Janae. Yeah, Janae.
no, well, she's gone.
Oh, she's gone. Oh, the cult leader dude.
The cult leader dude. So we'll see. And yeah, maybe we did spend too much time with the older couple. They certainly seem like, kind of shady at first, and then it just sucks that the old dude ended up telling on him, and then ended up being the reason why his girl got taken out. So it's unfortunate, but B overall, it's a solid episode.
Mm-hmm. Rich.
Yeah, so this is going to be very controversial, but I also would give this a B. So we are all aligned with the score this particular
is
week.
Jackpot.
Yeah, that's it. We did it.
Yeah, I think Adam said it best. It started off strong, it ended strong, but the middle dragged on. So I think B is a fair score, though.
Yeah, it was filler. So what about you people out there in the internet world? What do you think? Good show, bad show, good episode, bad episode? Do you like the overarching story going on with Laurent being the chosen one? Do you think we're going to get that moment to see if it's been tested and pull a Last of Us type of Ellie situation? Because that would be it, right? That it does happen, but I don't think it'll happen in that scenario with the cult leader and all that. That happens while Daryl eventually finds Laurent alive with Greybeard. Hopefully Greybeard survives. I like him. And maybe he does get bit and they're waiting and nothing happens. And I was like, oh man, I guess he was right. But that still doesn't make him the chosen one. That just means that, hey, if there's a good chance that if you're pregnant right now and if you get bit, that something happens within the process that this child will become immune from a transformation. Who knows? And then that could be, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see where they go with it. I hope they have an end game that makes sense to this. Maybe they're not thinking that far ahead because, like I said, there is a third season, and then we'll probably get some more seasons out of this and maybe some other spinoffs. I know they had discussed the possibility of doing other spinoffs because this has been successful. Daryl's been successful. The Rick and Michonne one was very successful. Dead City is also, and it's a combination of things. And we discussed that. The short form 6-episode season, that seems to work. People don't get that fatigue of watching a show, and it's pretty much because other networks are doing that. So we are now being accustomed to just, I know some people that when I tell them, like, oh, I'm watching, let's say, For All Mankind. It's like, oh, yeah, I want to jump into how many seasons? Oh, it's about 5 seasons. Oh, wow. Well, they're short seasons, right? 10 episodes a season. Whoa. I can't put
Hold your horses.
Time. Right. Whoa. I have a family. I was like, so 6 might be that sweet spot because that British style of 3-episode seasons, I can't deal with that. That upsets me. Thankfully, some shows don't do that. Slow Horses, great show. Apple TV, go watch that. Great spy show. But
that's the one with what's his name?
Oldman, Gary Oldman. Yeah. Awesome show. Show.
I need to start it. Yeah, I've heard nothing but.
Oh, it's so good. And Oldman said he was like, "Oh, do you enjoy playing this role?" He says, "Yes, I plan on playing it until I can't do it anymore." He was like, "I want to play this character forever and ever and ever."
That sounds like something Norman Reedus would say about Daryl.
Oh yeah. Norman Reedus is the Walking Dead. He has already surpassed Rick. I don't care what anyone says, even if you read the comics. I'm like, the story. Yeah, no. This is it. When you think Walking Dead now, it's got to be Daryl. somebody has to be like, oh yeah, oh, Daryl, because he is the face. He is the face. He's continuing on hell. He's got a spinoff. And if we're still talking about this spinoff 5-6 seasons in, it's like, shoot, this is the one who made it. And when they're like, oh, who survived this show? Well, Daryl survived. Not just the character, but just the actor. And he is The Walking Dead. He is the face of the brand. And clearly, AMC's thrilled by that because, as we all know, and if you don't know, he was created for the show. He is not part of the lore, the original lore from the comic books. He is a show creation. So the fact that it works out for him and people drew that connection with him and want to see him is great for them, because then they don't really have to share any other storylines or being forced to tell certain stories because people are like, well, in the comics he didn't do. That was a lot that happened with Rick, especially with the hand and all that stuff. We don't have to deal with the AMC, I should say. I don't work for AMC. I'm like putting myself in their shoes. I know, don't get that twisted, people. Right. All right. Well, that's it, everybody. That was our coverage for episode 4 for season 2 here. Daryl Dixon. We will be back for episode 5. Thanks again for all your support over on iTunes, on Spotify, of course, on the YouTube, where, you know, Koalition, we do this review, but then we also have a bunch of other shows that we cover. Rich, what's the other one that you guys are covering now?
Well, we finished covering Power for this season. That's the show that's currently on Starz. So definitely check out those reviews if you're into Power. And I also wanted to make a comment. Actually, our entertainment editor, Dana Abercrombie, she's actually interviewing the cast of this show, the Daryl Dixon show, as well as Dead City. So stay tuned for those interviews, because they will be up at some point in time, and then we'll definitely have you guys tell you guys where to check them out. But that's on the Koalition Entertainment channel.
Yep, there you go, and that's it. You definitely find that. Did you get to relay that question I had for the cast to Dana?
I did. I don't know what the answer is yet, though.
So. Oh no, of course not. Of course not. No.
Yeah.
People need to check out her coverage on that to see if they answer it. Should I say what my question is, just to see if she does answer it?
Sure.
Yeah, I guess so. So my question that I relayed over is that to find out with this cast on which which member of the original OG Walking Dead cast would they like to see come back into the universe, come back into one of these shows, Dead City and all this stuff. And we'll see if they have an interesting response. And I hope they don't give like a cheesy response of like, oh, I wish, it'd be Daryl, but Daryl's doing it. No. I want a genuine, like maybe somebody who died in one of the earlier seasons, or someone that we didn't get closure with, or hell, go ahead, throw in the hint of Morgan. I want someone to say, well, I'd like to see Morgan, man. I mean, last we saw, he's wandering around, right? Isn't he on his way to Alexandria or something like that? Be cool. I don't think Morgan's story is done. I think we've talked about that already. There's a good chance we'll see him again. And I think the AMC also doesn't see it's done, because they could have killed him off, or they could have done some other stuff, but they didn't. So we will see. All right, everybody. Thanks again for the support. Like I said, YouTube, iTunes, Spotify. I am Negan. Like, subscribe, and just keep us going, because we're still here. We are still here covering all this Walking Dead content. All right, everybody. Peace.
Peace.